120,000 open submittal items. Sounds daunting. That's what I walked into when I went to train PCL at the Humber River Regional Hospital project site in Toronto back in 2012. It was my first exposure to a client who was all in on using submittals in eBuilder, and I was very impressed. They had access to a treasure trove of submittals data, performance metrics, early access to risk and issues. They were tracking all of this with dashboards inside of eBuilder, dashboards showing how many items were within 3 days of being late, how many were approved on time, which subs were taking too long. After seeing this, it really clicked for me. Owning submittals data is very valuable. Not only did it help the contractor, PCL, deliver this project, it also allowed the owners to understand issues they would have on future projects as well. Our hope today is to help improve your organization's use of eBuilder submittals module, and I'm honored to introduce to you our panelists, Aaron Morency and Daniel Gerardo. So with that, Aaron, why don't you take it away?
Okay, thanks, Avi. It was 10 years ago that I started my career after college, and the client I was working with said, "Send me your submittals." And I had no idea what that meant. So, like a diligent young professional, I go searching around on the internet to try to figure out what that meant. What does it mean to send me your submittals, And so you search around on the internet, what does a submittal mean? And it's a pretty vague term, just the act of submitting something. Okay, well, that's not very helpful. So unfortunately, I had to go ask my boss about this, and he was a pretty gracious guy, so he was willing to coach me a little bit as a young professional there, and taught me, go look at your contract documents, and you need to dig through there and kind of pick out all the things that they're actually asking for you to turn over to them. What are the things that they're actually looking for us to deliver to them? I was working at the time as a above ground storage tank design builder. So we designed the tanks and we built them for them. So a little bit of as a contractor and as an engineer. So my education was in engineering, not construction management, where you might learn what a submittal is more regularly. So a couple of the things that we're going to talk about today is to, first of all, understand the terminology. And eBuilder is one of the tools that has terminology, and it's somewhat industry specific, and that's fine. But we'll make sure that everybody understands what we're talking about here when we talk about the terminology. The next one is maximizing the owner data, owning the data. So the flow of information, being able to be witness to that throughout the entire process. And then the last one, how to get your contractors to submit their information into your system of record, being eBuilder, how to get the contractors to be involved in that. So with that, we'll actually jump straight in to the terminology to begin with. So the register, another project I was working on at the Portland Airport here in Oregon, it was a design build project. And so it was kind of a little bit of, we need to develop the specs, the requirements, as we also develop the submittal register. And so in that process, you're kind of identifying what are the items that you need to actually see for review, right? The engineers and architects are kind of making those decisions as they're developing the specifications for the projects, right? And so really what the register is a list. It's kind of a shopping list of all the items that you expect to have communication with, right? To turn over, somebody needs to look at them and review them during this process. So obviously you're developing in our design build project, we're developing the requirements, which are quite extensive. There's quite a lot of information in there, technical information, maybe only relevant to the engineers, but the contractors are picking out the items that are very specific to turn over for review and approval. And so the register is a list of all of those individual items. So when we talk about the register, it's the list of all the items. The next one gets a little bit more confusing, and we talk about packages. So when we talk about packages, Avi actually has a great story. He was a 14-year-old kid working with his dad in his construction business as a general contractor. So Avi's job as a 14-year-old was to go around to the subcontractors and collect all of their submittals. And at the time, these were paper submittals. So he's collecting all of these paper submittals and then he would bind them up into these packages. And so not all of the submittals would go into the same package, you can imagine, right? So the goal here is we want to package information that would go to, say, a mechanical engineer for review, and we want to package the submittal items from the register that would go to maybe a structural engineer for review. So that's kind of the idea when we talk about packages, just grouping the information in a way that kind of makes sense. And so in eBuilder, we have to package the items to move them for review. And then the last one is the submittal coordinator. We'll actually jump to a diagram here. And so typically we see this in two different sides, right? The first side there on the left is the general contractor side, where you have the group of contractors, the GC being in the middle of there, collaborating with some of their subcontractors to collect the information to be turned over for review from the other side, which is the architect and engineer on the right-hand side there, where the submittal coordinator in this case is right there in the middle. They're in the middle of all of the submittal, the flow of information, and they're collaborating with their subconsultants or owners or other review parties to make sure that we're in fact going to install products that are acceptable for the project, right? That meet up to the requirements. So when we talk about the submittal coordinator in this case, in my experience, usually it's an architect, somebody on that right-hand side, who very knowledgeable about all of the different pieces of the project. And they're just gonna collect all those packages that the GC has packaged up for them, and they're gonna disperse them to their subconsultants. So, obviously not all packages are gonna go to the same person. Not everybody's gonna be knowledgeable about every single piece of the project. That's unlikely unless it's a small project. And this person would also have the ability to disperse information like, maybe an item needs to be reviewed by an electrical engineer and a mechanical engineer. And so you can have several people, subconsultants, help you with that review process. And so those are kind of the terms that we'll stick with today in this diagram. And we'll move on from here to maximizing owning the data, kind of having the visibility into it, the exceptions, and then the process, right? So again, going back to my design build project at the Portland Airport, developing that list of the register, the submittal register, all the different items, so everybody in the process here, the architect and engineers and the owners and the general contractors, the subcontractors, et cetera, want to have visibility into all of this information, right? It's useful in a lot of different ways for a lot of different parts of the stakeholders, a lot of different perspectives there. So to just have that transparency of one location for this register of information is very helpful for everybody involved here, no matter what their perspective is. And then the middle item there, reporting on exceptions, excuse me. So another example would be at the Portland Airport, we had an emergency generator that was a part of the toll plaza that was a part of the project. And we knew that was likely going to be procured from a foreign location. Therefore, shipping alone was going to take a very long time. And this emergency generator, maybe can take a long time to design and make sure you got it right for the requirements. So, having that information upfront in the submittal process is very effective, right? So if we started entering that information and it starts pushing out our schedule, we understand, oh, this is why, it's because of this one item. Maybe we can expedite the design and the review process of those submittals to get the emergency generator approved so that it wouldn't push out our schedule so much. It's not critical anymore. So that's kind of the idea there. It brings that information to the fore, and you'd be able to understand those exceptions in the project and be able to deal with them and handle the risks. And then the last one here, integrating the owner into the process. A lot of the times we got owners that have very knowledgeable people, right? And so it's not a subconsultant that has all the answers. Again, the example at the Portland Airport, an airport you can imagine full of lots of civil engineers. These civil engineers know a lot about their hot asphalt mix. They know a lot about their concrete mix designs. And so it's not like they want to review every one of the submittals. Their architect's going to be interested in the colors and such. But these engineers wanted to be involved with the more technical hot asphalt mix and the concrete design. And so that's okay. We can integrate the owners into the process also as kind of a sub-consultant and get their review and approval on some of the submittals also, without having them be, say, the submittal coordinator role where they have to review and look at every single one of the packages. Possibility there, but not required. You can get involved without having to be the submittal coordinator. And so from there, we'll actually go into how to get your contractors to be involved in the process. And for that, I'm going to pass it back over to Avi for him to explain that to you.
Thanks, Aaron. Let's start with a very telling graphic here, courtesy of Dodge Data and Analytics. They've done a lot of great work on capturing the relationship between owners and contractors. I'd encourage you to go and check out their white paper, which is where we got this graphic from. The first thing that stands out to me here is that only 6% of contractors have refused to use an owner's PMIS tool. This is encouraging. 94% of the organizations watching this right now can get their contractor to use eBuilder no problem. However, we need to understand and have empathy for the fact that 47% of those contractors that will use eBuilder on your projects, they're still going to use their own system. And it's causing them to have to do double entry on their projects. We want to show you a few ways that we can eliminate that churn and still have your contractors using an owner's tool of choice without the need for full double entry. So there are ways to solve this problem, and we want to share with you the three that we find today. The first is the standard import. Daniel is going to show you how to do that. It's getting the contractors, a lot of contractor tools out there right now will automatically generate the submittal register, per the spec and populate that sheet. You can actually take that sheet and import it into eBuilder so that all of the submittal register is right there and manage the process inside of eBuilder. So a standard import helps reduce the need of typing things in twice in two systems. It'll allow you to get your full register into eBuilder. The second integration is through Trimble's project site. So project site is the general contractor tool by Trimble. And this is the only way currently that you can fully integrate submittals between the contractor tool and eBuilder. It will allow for a full bidirectional integration, and it's a very powerful way to eliminate all double entry from your project team when using submittals. So if you have an interest in that, reach out to us and we'll point you in the right direction. And then the third way is a one-way Procore sync. So if you have the API, if your organization has the API, you could import all of your submittal items from Procore or any other GC tool that you have that also has an API. And you could, from that point, once you've imported them into eBuilder, push everything out that you've done inside of eBuilder back to your tool. So it doesn't have a bidirectional sync like Project Site would, but it does allow you the ability of not having double entry. You can manage everything in eBuilder. Owners can own the information, and then all that information will go back to the GC's tool as needed. So I wanted to highlight those three ways. If you have any questions about that, please ask or reach out to us. And now we'll get into the training. So I'm going to pass it over to Daniel, and he'll go from there. Daniel, take it away.
All right, thank you, Avi. All right, so today what we're going to go over as part of the training is the new project setup. So in every project, there does have to be a little bit of housekeeping items to get the submittal module set up in there. Then we're going to move over to getting the contractor set up, getting them on board, or getting them familiar with the tool and how to utilize the submittal module. And then last, we're going to kind of demonstrate, as Aaron brought up earlier, the owner interaction. Perhaps you as the owner want to be able to review some of the submittal items in the aspect and not actually be the submittal coordinator. So we're going to demonstrate how to do that as well. So let me go ahead and jump into a project and let's dive right in. Okay, so here we're looking at the project list. As you might have noticed using eBuilder, you have these tabs across the top. What you might not have ever noticed is that there is actually no submittals tab up along the top tabs. The reason for that is that the submittals module is actually housed within every single project. So you do have to go into the project to utilize the submittals module. So let me show you quickly how to set this up. I'm going to go ahead and go to one of my new projects that we've just established. And the submittals modules down here on the project menu, down on the lower left-hand side, pretty much the last module there. When you expand this, you'll notice there's a couple of different options. We're going to go into the settings. Now in the settings, there's a couple of key features that you want to fill out to help utilize the submittal module. One would be the complete review date due offset. Now based on contractual obligations, that could be 14 days, 10 days, whatever the case may be, you can enter that date here, that amount of days here. So I'm going to go ahead and use 14. The next thing would be the offset type. Are we counting calendar days? Are we counting working days? I'm going to go ahead and leave this one here at calendar days. Next option down is selecting a folder. When you click on this, your folder, your documents menu will come up, and then you can pre-select a particular folder that you want all the documents in the submittals to be housed into. One of the benefits of doing this is that as the end users, the general contractors, the architects, the sub-consultants, all need to attach documents from the original documentation of the submittal to any type of markups. We want to make it easier for them and also help organize that all these documents are going to be located in one place within my project. So in this aspect, we're going to choose the submittals folder. And last, a key feature, and is also the required field, is the submittal coordinator. This is going to be the recipient of all the submittal packages. This could be whether it be the architect or a resident engineer, or anyone that is going to be in charge of receiving all these submittal packages and distributing them to the appropriate sub-consultants for review. Now, one of the tips that I like to provide is there should at least be two submittal coordinators. One should be the primary submittal coordinator that has already been designated through OAC meetings and whatnot, and then a backup submittal coordinator, just in case the submittal coordinator goes on vacation or gets inundated with packages. The backup submittal coordinator can step in and help keep things moving along by moving packages to the appropriate sub-consultants and helping keep track of everything where it is. So in this case, we're going to add the submittal coordinator as our primary, and then I'm going to add Cole as our secondary. Other things that you can do is who to notify. Every time a submittal package gets moved around, who wants to be notified? In a project that I was working with in a high-rise in Chicago, pretty much all the projects I was working with, my project managers always wanted to be notified when a submittal item package was moved around. So in that aspect, you can choose whether it be at the entire role level, or if you keep scrolling down, you can actually choose individual names here. Now, there are some other features down below, as you can see. For this webinar, we're not going to get into those. But one thing I do want to point out is one of the most recent enhancements eBuilder has done to the submittals module is allow for the subcontractors to partake in this module and experience using eBuilder as well. Now, for the webinar, we're not going to go into using the subcontractors or bringing them in. But if you'd like more information on enhancing your current submittal module or implementing your submittal module, feel free to reach out to us at Avicado and we'll help you get the ball rolling. Once you get all this information set up top, you're going to hit save. Now you've set up the submittal module for use. Now, working with this general contractor back in Chicago, they had already started running submittals and processing some submittals. And they had their own system as well. So I was tasked with getting their information out of their system and loaded into ours as the owner. We wanted to own that data. So working with them, we discovered that their system was able to export the information into Excel. And one of the key things about that is eBuilder does have that import feature, as Avi had mentioned, and straight from an Excel file. There does have to be some mapping set up, so eBuilder has a template to utilize. So working with the contractor on that project, we got all their information out. We mapped it into the eBuilder Excel import template, and voila, it was an importable file. So working over the phone with this contractor, I walked him through importing this template. So for the sake of this, I'm going to switch on over to our Avicado Medical Center University project to continue the rest of this training. Now, working with this project and working with this general contractor, we went and I guided them through going to the submittal items, clicking on the import button. I think I might have clicked that a little fast. Let me go back over here. Over on the right, lower right, if you can see my mouse over here, there's this import button here. When you click on that, it's going to ask you to choose that file. So after we worked on that file, got it all set up into the eBuilder standard import template, we'll select it and click next. And doing all that pre-work ahead of time, we mapped all the fields and all the data into this, so there should be no additional work needed. Click next, and now it's going to show you the results of the import prior to the true import. As you can see, I designed this particular file with 2 exceptions just to demonstrate that it will catch some of the fields that might be a mismatch in that aspect. So you can actually see which ones are exceptions. You can export them and then correct them as needed and then re-import them. But for the sake of this webinar, what we're going to do is we're going to ignore the exceptions, and we're just going to go ahead and import this file. Once it's done, you're going to get a submittal register has successfully imported. Click on Finish, and when it screen refreshes, you'll notice now that I have all my submittal items logged into eBuilder. Now, one of the tips that I was working with on the general contractor, they were unfamiliar how this was going to look and how this was going to work. So what we did is we created the template with maybe 2 to 3 items, imported it, so that way they can actually get a feel of where the data is going to go onto the screen and if they wanted to make any changes before they imported a mass amount of submittal items. One of the other benefits of that is you can actually use this as a submittal schedule. Exporting their data from their system can include some of the dates. The import template does include some date fields that you can import along with your submittal register, and your dates will populate in the schedule fields on the submittal item. That's one of the other features that you can utilize as well. Next thing is, once we get those items all loaded into eBuilder, the next thing is loading the documents that pertain to each submittal item. So for instance, it's as simple as clicking on the paperclip and dragging and dropping the particular document that goes with the submittal item, right? And as we can see, we've already set the folder, so now the general contractor or the end user does not have to go around and choose, or hopefully choose, the correct folder. They simply click select, file uploads, and done. This could be one file or multiple files uploaded at one time. When they get that all set up, the next step for them is to actually package these submittal items into a package and send them off to the submittal coordinator. In doing that, it's basically just like in the physical world, getting a bunch of documents, as Aaron was mentioning, stuffing them into a box or binding them up together, putting them into a box, shipping them off via FedEx or whatnot to the submittal coordinator. Now we're just doing it all digitally. Let's say that we wanted to send all this concrete information over at one time. I can select any number of particular submittal register items in the same discipline per se, click on Add to Package. I want to create a new submittal package and click Continue. Now at this point, now it's eBuilder's guiding you through, all right, we added these 3 items to this package. Let's now give this package a name. eBuilder does have a predefined list drop down. So if you start typing in the discipline, such as O3, I have a concrete list. We could, for instance, O5, all right, metals. But we'll go back to O3. Now let's say what I wanted to type in based on my nomenclature does not fit what eBuilder has allowed. You can always free type in anything that you want to match the nomenclature that was decided upon prior to starting the submittal process. But in this aspect, what we're going to do is we're going to actually choose one of the pre-designed lists that eBuilder has. In selecting that, it will actually populate the trade as well. Give the submittal package name, concrete mix. You can also provide a description, whether it be the same as a package name or a little more elaborate description if needed. Once you get that all set up, hit save. Now, working with the general contractor on that, they found out that, oh, this was quite simple. It's easy to upload your submittal register. They understood how to add items to a package and then easily get that package sent over to the submittal coordinator, all without going to the post office. In doing this, now as a general contractor, we're ready to send this off to the submittal coordinator. Select the items that we want to send out for review. Hit send for review. And now we're going to choose the submittal coordinator. As you recall earlier, we chose 2 people in the prior project, but here we have and we understood that Mr. Submittal Coordinator is going to be the primary submittal coordinator for the project. So we're going to select their name. The review due date complete auto-populates based on that due date offset that you have selected. You can copy any roles or copy any individual users on the submittal and hit send for review. Once you send that off for review, if you notice on the screen, the submittal coordinator is now the owner of the package. Now, as a submittal coordinator, you're going to get an email. This will appear on your home page as well. So this will help prevent things from falling through the cracks. Now, as Aaron said earlier, submittal packages might need to be reviewed by other sub-consultants. So in doing that, I, as a submittal coordinator, would grab any one of these, all of them, or just the ones pertaining to or requiring an additional review from a sub. Select that, and I'm going to forward for review. Here you're going to have a whole list of the members on the project. You'll be able to cherry pick the consultants that you want to send this to. And for example, if you have a submittal item that needs to go to MEP and electrical at the same time, you can always add 2 different people in here. You're going to give them a respond by date. So knowing that it's due in 14 days, or if you're down to 10 days, you can always give them a respond by date, and hopefully that ignites them to get this back to you as soon as possible, and forward. Now you'll notice that submittal coordinator is still listed as submittal coordinator, but it is now held by the 2 consultants that I selected. The consultants will then be able to review, upload markups, upload documents the same way that the general contractor did by clicking on the paperclip. Now, let's backtrack to the example of if you're an owner and you'd like to be involved in some of the submittal items. Back when I was working in the project in Chicago, one of the main things, and in fact, it was amongst a lot of the projects, one of the main things us as the owner were really interested in is picking out the paint schemes for the lobbies, for the offices. So in this example, what we're going to do is we're going to show you how that you as the owner can be involved in the process. It doesn't necessarily have to be paint. It can be any one of these items. We have an interior paint package here. The submittal coordinator is going to go into that, select it just as they would want to send it to a sub-consultant, forward for review, and instead of picking a sub-consultant, we're going to pick one of the owner's reps, whether it be an owner's rep, the project manager itself, him or herself, and just move their name right on over, give them a respond by date, and hit forward for review. So now that's a way to be involved in the submittal process for the particular items that need to be monitored or reviewed by the internal team. With all that being said, let's back up now to the different views that we have inside the submittal module. As a general contractor, one of the main views that I'd like, or that might pertain more to you, is a submittal register. Items here are the entire submittal register that you have and need to be sent out in a package. Other views is if you're a submittal coordinator or the owner, submittal packages has its own view. So now you're just looking at the package level information, not necessarily all the different register items. So this way you can keep track of where the packages are, which ones need to be sent out, and all that entails with routing these packages around. And last, whether your project has 5 submittals to 1,000 submittals to 5,000 submittals, all this data can be easily brought to the surface for digestion by using reports and dashboards. For example, we have a dashboard set up here, though with a couple of examples. There's not too many submittal items in our project here, but you can see here that we can bring up to the forefront submittal items that are overdue. We have 14. One of the things that we were working with the general contractor out in Chicago is after we loaded all these submittals, this dashboard helped bring to light and hold accountable any submittal that might be falling overdue or falling through the cracks. One thing that we did discover at one point in time was that we had some submittal packages due in the next 5 days, but yet we noticed there were no actors involved in that. So we were able to go in there, isolate that submittal, add an actor, and get that resolved pretty quickly. So bringing all that data, whether it's 5 submittals to 1,000 submittals in one project or across your whole program, Using the dashboard can help bring that data to the surface in a digestible format and allow or prevent anything from falling through the cracks. Now with that, I'm going to go ahead and hand the controls back to Avi to help land this plane.